I've been thinking about something lately. I think a lot of us believe we're waiting on different things: more confidence, better timing, more money, the right opportunity. But I don't think that's what we're really waiting for. I think we're waiting to believe something different about ourselves. And until that changes, everything else tends to stay the same. Because the biggest things holding us back usually aren't the things happening around us. They're the stories we've quietly accepted about ourselves. And those stories have a way of shaping every decision we make without us ever realizing it. See, I don't think anyone is born believing they have to earn love. I think somewhere along the way, we start believing that who we are isn't enough by itself. Maybe it happened because you were praised only when you achieved something. Maybe it happened because being useful got you attention. Maybe it happened because you learned that keeping everyone else happy kept the peace. Whatever the reason, the message slowly became the same. If I do enough, maybe I'll finally be enough. And that belief doesn't just stay in childhood, it follows you in adulthood. You start measuring your worth by how much you accomplish, how much you sacrifice, how much of yourself you give away. You become the person everyone can count on while quietly wondering why you still feel empty. Because when love feels like something that has to be earned, rest starts to feel like guilt. Saying no starts to feel selfish. Choosing yourself starts to feel wrong. And after enough years, you stop asking whether those beliefs are true. You just start living as if they are. That's the hard part. Most people never stop long enough to question where those beliefs came from. They just kept carrying them. And when you spend enough time believing your value has to be proven, it becomes very easy to put yourself at the bottom of your own priority list. And once you start believing your value has to be earned, it begins to change the way you live. Your own needs slowly moves lower and lower until one day you hardly notice them anymore. At first, it feels like kindness. You tell yourself, I'm just helping. I'm just showing up. It's only this one time. But little by little, those moments become a lifestyle. You become the person everyone can count on, while quietly becoming the person you spend the least amount of time taking care of. Here's what I've noticed. Expectation rarely arrives all at once. They're built one repeated decision at a time. Every time you put yourself last, people become a little more accustomed to finding you there. Eventually, what started as generosity simply becomes what's expected. And that's when something important gets lost. You become so focused on helping everyone else build the life they want that your own life keeps getting postponed. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And before long, you spent years waiting without ever realizing you were the one doing all the waiting. Then one day, you look at your life, and instead of asking, how did I get here? You quietly tell yourself, I guess that's just who I am. And see, that's one of the most dangerous conclusions a person can come to. Not because it's always true, because once you believe it, you stop questioning it. You stop asking, can I change? Can I grow? Can I become something different? Instead, you begin defending a version of yourself that you may have only created to survive a difficult season. Think about it. How much of who you believe you are today is actually who you've always been? And how much of it was shaped by disappointment, fear, rejection, or simply trying to make it through life? Because there's a difference between your identity and your survival. One tells the story of who you are, the other tells the story of what you've been through. The problem comes when those two stories become the same story, because every opportunity to grow starts feeling like you're betraying yourself, when in reality, you might finally be discovering yourself. Maybe growth isn't becoming somebody else. Maybe it's finally giving yourself permission to meet the person you could have been all along. And once you realize you don't have to stay the person you've always been, a new question begins to take shape. So what am I waiting for? Most of us answer that question without ever saying a word. We're waiting for someone to notice us, to believe in us, to choose us, to finally make us feel like we're enough. The problem is, when someone else becomes the source of your confidence leaves every time they do. That's a difficult way to live. Your peace becomes dependent on someone else's opinion. Your future becomes dependent on someone else's decision. Your worth becomes tied to someone else's ability to recognize it. And that's the game you'll never truly win. Some people will celebrate you, some won't. Some will see your value immediately. Others may never see it at all. None of those reactions change who you are. Eventually, there comes a moment when you have to stop waiting for someone else to choose you and decide you're going to choose yourself. Because the permission you've been searching for was never locked inside of another person. It's been waiting inside of you. The only thing left is deciding to believe it. Because once you finally choose yourself, another thought usually shows up. I wish I had done this years ago. I've heard people say that about careers, relationships, dreams, their health, even their happiness. It's amazing how quickly regret tries to convince us that we've missed our chance. We spend so much time looking at years behind us that we stop noticing the years still in front of us. The calendar has a way of making people feel defeated. 30 feels too late. 40 feels too late. 50 feels too late. Until you meet someone who started over anyway. Then you realize it was never about the number. It was about the decision. Every meaningful change begins on a day that used to look ordinary. The question isn't whether you should have started sooner. You can't change that. The better question is, what are you going to do with the time you still have? Because every day you spend believing it's too late becomes another day you never get back. Maybe the chapter you're afraid to begin turns out to be the one that changes everything. Maybe this is what everything we've been talking about been leading to. We spend so much time waiting for life to change that we forgot change usually begins with us. Not all at once, not in some dramatic moment, but in the quiet decision that nobody else sees, the decision to stop believing you have to earn your worth, the decision to stop putting yourself at the bottom of your own life, the decision to stop letting yesterday introduce tomorrow, the decision to believe that who you've been doesn't have to determine who you're becoming. None of those decisions change your life overnight. What they change is your direction, and directions has a way of changing everything that comes after it. Most people don't recognize the moment their life begins to change because it doesn't always feel extraordinary. Sometimes it feels like an ordinary day where you decided you weren't going to live the same way anymore. Maybe that's the conversation we've been having all along. We've convinced ourselves we're waiting for a better timing, more confidence, someone else's approval, the perfect opportunity. But those things aren't always what keep us standing still. Sometimes it's the stories that we believed for so long that we stop questioning whether they were ever true. The beautiful thing about a story is that it can be rewritten. The beautiful thing about a belief is that it can be replaced. And when those begin to change, your decisions begin to change. Your direction begins to change. And before you know it, your life begins changing too. So wherever you are today, don't let yesterday become the loudest voice in the room. You still have chapters left to write. You still have decisions left to make. And you still have a future that deserves the best version of you. Here we go again.